I believe suicide and the suicide rate of Black America is a direct reflection of the spiritual nutricide. We ain't got no spiritual nutrition, brother. We are all cars and clothes. We ain't got no spiritual fire. That thing Harriet Tubman had and Frederick Douglass and Booker T. Washington, we ain't got that.
But the suicide seems like it comes from a fundamental misunderstanding of reality. The fundamental assumption that if you kill yourself, you put a cessation to the mind. You stop all of the images and the thoughts that are happening inside of your head, and so get released from the pain that you're feeling.
Yeah.
What if that is an assumption that is not based on reality? In other words, because we don't actually know what consciousness is, we can't locate it in the brain. You have no idea if blowing your brains out is going to do the trick of stopping your emotional torment. It may only enhance it. So why take that bet? Why take that bet?
The pain is so excruciating in their irrationality and in their panic to escape that pain. Pain is a hell of a thing. Pain is a hell of a thing because most people are not able to deal with pain and continue to keep their life moving. Most people, the minute they feel it, they have to escape it. And if that means taking my own life, I may have to do it because what I'm feeling is so bad, so painful. I'd rather be out of here than have it at all.
The ability to transmute that pain. We go deeply within it, go to it, we face it. And as we do, we continue to move through and see what's there. And not only see what's there, but who is the you that is there with it.
And the meaning of it.
Right.
One of the things I try to get clients to see, your pain is telling you something. Don't be so quick to get rid of it. Find out, what does that pain really mean? There's a message with that pain. Negative emotions are messages from spirit. Every negative emotion, anger, pain, it's a message from spirit that you are imbalanced. What is the imbalance here that you need to address? Because pain didn't come from the outside world. Pain came from you. Stress is your interpretation of reality. Somebody else can be going through the exact same thing you're going through, and they will not experience the level of stress that you are experiencing. They will not experience the pain. So there is something wrong with the way you are interpreting and labeling your experience that is causing that pain. And if we change the way you interpret, and if we change the way we label your experience, we can eliminate your pain.
Oh, so I'm hearing you say that the interpretation of reality becomes the
reality.
It is the reality.
There's no such thing as actual reality. You and I will look at the same thing, and your interpretation might be totally different from mine, even though we saw the same thing, which speaks to what? God gives us the ability to create from our experience any reality that we want.
The ability to control meaning, what things mean.
There you go. Control the meaning.
Ourselves. It allows us to build whatever reality we choose to live in.
If you had the power to turn every negative experience, to interpret and label every negative experience that you've ever had in your life, if you had the willpower and the discipline to label and interpret every negative experience that it registered as a positive, that's the definition of invincibility. No matter what you do to that man, curse him, slander him, defame him, rob him, he's going to label that experience in such a way that he's going to get more out of it than you did.
And that's the power of internal communication, the ability to communicate with yourself such that you take charge over your own interpretations of reality, and so thereby control reality itself, your reality itself. That's what a powerful idea. We can build all the homes and all the cities we want. Who's giving us technology to build meaning? right, in our own minds, so that we can heal and repair our relationship with our daughters, our children, our families, with the ancestors, with ourselves. This is a part of the power that I'm getting out of hearing you talk, and it's also what the book is about. I do want to send that to you. If you
Please, I'm gonna text that to you. But they need to have some kind of a spiritual foundation, because if you don't, when the tough times of life come upon you, and they will, when life's trials hit you and you ain't got no spiritual foundation, how you gonna survive that? To perceive through all illusion the ultimate truth that there is really no separation between you and God. And so the world that we live in is a world of extreme illusion. And the world is designed to test your faith. And the world is designed to convince you that there is no such thing as God consciousness, and that you and God are so far apart that if you spent your whole life trying to reach supreme consciousness, the divine foundation of all existence, it would be a waste of time. And so God consciousness is being able to look through the lies, look through the deception, look through the false indoctrination, look through the illusion of the world to see that there is no separation between you and supreme consciousness. I always say that you will know when Black people have achieved God consciousness, because they would be free of white supremacy. They would be free of white oppression. They would no longer fear. Fear is a very, very powerful emotion. It's normally reserved only for parents and for the creator. But Black people have a third source of fear, and that's white supremacy and white people itself. And so to truly achieve God consciousness, you would have to throw off the yoke of fear that you have for whites. And when you throw off that yoke of fear that you have for whites, and I would also add adoration, because closely associated with the concept of fear is the concept of adoration. We adore white people almost to the point of worship, because we see them as superior. So to achieve God consciousness, which is to mean you remove all illusions of thought and emotion from your mind, would automatically mean that you no longer see the white man as superior. It automatically would mean that you no longer see the white woman as superior. It automatically would mean that you no longer see white culture as superior. And it would dictate that you create your own reality. There is no God consciousness that is separate from the creation of a new reality, because at the basic level, the creator creates. So if we are manifestations of the creator in human flesh, then we also have the obligation to create a new reality. So as long as we are being the creatures of oppression, as long as we allow ourselves to exist as the victims of someone else's agenda, there's no God consciousness there. Because when you really achieve God consciousness, you would rather die than live as a second-class citizen on this planet. It becomes incompatible to a man or woman with God consciousness. There's no option. You look at like Prophet Nat Turner, who was a preacher himself. Nat Turner evolved his spirituality to a point where he only had one or two choices. It was freedom or it was death. When I look at Gabriel Prosser, the leader of the Richmond, Virginia slave insurrection, his flag said death or liberty. When I look at Queen Mother Harriet Tubman, she said, I figured it out in my mind that I had a right to one of two things, freedom or death. And if I couldn't have one, I could surely have the other. That's God consciousness. When you're ready to die for your freedom. Dr. King, Malcolm X, I believe they achieved God consciousness. That speech that Dr. King gave on April the 3rd, 1968, the night prior to the assassination, I believe in that moment, he achieved enlightenment. He achieved God consciousness. You cannot have God consciousness coexisting with second-class citizenship, coexisting with fear, coexisting with mediocrity or insecurity or lack of confidence in yourself. When Jesus spoke of the temple of God is within, we really have to tap into that, because one of the things that slavery did to us, slavery transformed and removed our spiritual locus of control from inside of us to outside of us. So salvation does not take place inside. So when you go to church, many churches, not all, have you looking for God elsewhere, looking for salvation elsewhere. Everything that you need is within. But it's hard for us to understand that, especially when you've been brought up on a religious culture that has an external locus of control. Black people have to put that internal locus of control back inside of ourselves. Why do people drink alcohol? Why do they smoke cigarettes? Why do they eat so much? Because they believe they need something outside of them to solve their issue. And our job is to get them to understand nothing you need for spiritual salvation can be found outside. Everything's inside. Your problem originated inside of you, and the solution for your problem is going to originate inside of you.
And that's the concept that, I've been working on, which is this concept of spiritual responsibility. The idea that we are responsible for all the things in the universe. I mean, when I say that, I don't mean us as people, as individuals, as persons. I mean that which is common to the one who is Dr. Umar Johnson and the one who is Dr. Shawn Smith. That consciousness, supreme consciousness, is responsible for all things, and we are to step into that and identify as that, and so take responsibility for our reality. This concept of spiritual responsibility puts the locus of control back in ourselves. There is no person on the outside. All the perpetrators disappear. If somebody's afraid of dying, if you are in God consciousness, then dying is, well, we've done that before so many times.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because under God consciousness, the illusion of death is destroyed. There is no death. Everything gets recycled. Everything.
You notice that with the universe. This is not a universe where things disappear forever. If something breaks down thermodynamically, we understand that, well, it's only changed form. It doesn't matter what you're talking, because you can set something on fire. We can set these laptops on fire, and the exact amount of matter that constitutes these laptops is going to continue to exist in the smoke, in the ash, in the...
Absolutely. Energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. Because that's our purpose for being here, to reconnect oneself with God. Or should I say, to realize that you've never been disconnected from God in the first place. When you look at the pyramids were a result of God consciousness. In fact, I don't know if there's a greater example of God consciousness than ancient Kemet. Because here was a people who were so convinced of their ability to replicate heaven on earth, because that's what Kemet is. They literally designed the society to mirror the planets in the constellation of the stars. Literally. And the majesty of Kemet is they built this city as a dedication to the Almighty in the middle of a desert. Is there any greater way to prove to people that impossible is an opinion? When I look at ancient Kemet, a lot of people marvel at the science and the art. I marvel at the spirituality and the psychology. I say to myself, this city This nation is a message to us now that impossible is an opinion. Nothing is impossible when you have God on your side. What can we not do? You already see the proof of our genius. You already see the proof of our potential, but we can't actualize it because spiritually we are still slaves.
What I'm thinking here is that there were something called the Dark Ages, and that the technological innovation was really flatlining, if not exceedingly declining. I think that we are in a spiritual dark age.
Oh, absolutely.
In other words, we are going to require new technologies. We might look at Kemet and say, oh, wow, look at what's possible. But until we recover the technologies, I'm not talking about whatever they used in order to get the rocks from one place to the other. I'm talking about the psycho-spiritual technologies, the psycho-technologies that they were using. What were they? How were they engineering their minds? How were they engineering and making use of the technologies of the soul in order to bring to bear on their world? One of the things that I developed is this idea of conscious transformation technologies. These are a series of technologies that we can begin to use in order to take control back even just over our emotions and over this concept that you just said, which is this concept of faith. Ye of little faith. This idea of faith, of being able to call into being that which is unseen. Can you speak to what that means?
African people have to renew our imaginations. I do not think we use our imaginations to bring about God consciousness. I don't think we use our imagination to connect with the divine. Albert Einstein once said that imagination is more important than intelligence. Because without the imagination, you really have no true use for your intelligence. You're just going to be a replication of everything that has gone before you. Imagination is the divine mind of creation within man. See it in your mind before you can see it in your reality. And I don't think that we are creating enough fresh ideas, fresh thoughts, fresh plans, fresh goals, fresh visions, fresh new systems. I don't think we're using the imaginative faculty to try to recreate our world on the outside. God is mind. Divine consciousness, supreme consciousness is mind. So we have to be able to access our own mind to create, just as out of divine consciousness came everything that exists. Just as out of divine consciousness came everything in Nile Valley culture. As above, so below. We have to see it in here. I believe our ancestors in the Nile Valley culture, they were able to activate the God gene. In fact, one of the things that I learned in studying Kemet, did you know that the Pharaoh, who was considered the manifestation of God on earth, every Pharaoh was considered the son of God.
Right.
They would spend half the year meditating, fasting, and praying. Half the year meditating, fasting, and praying. And it was in that communion with God that these ideas, that they could create the perfect society in the middle of nowhere, were born. They were able to download directly from heaven the intent and the design from Almighty God. So until we start using our imaginations to do things beyond enjoy ourselves, it's going to be difficult for us to get to that next level. Your imagination and your heart must be in total alignment. Your dream and your heart will bring forth your destiny. Repetition rules the brain, not truth, not intelligence. Repetition does. In other words, anything you believe it because you said it to yourself a million times, or it was said to you a million times. Why are Black people still in the same condition we've been in for 50 years? Why is it that we can spend $30 billion on hair and beauty, $2 billion on Air Jordans, $4 billion on liquor, and still claim that we are poor? Why are we still letting white people dictate our reality? 80% of our mind is unconscious. Most of our behavior and emotion is a reaction to what we believe on the deepest level. And if those core beliefs are negative, dysfunctional, toxic, they have to be replaced. Affirmations are programs to reset your unconscious core beliefs. An affirmation is a program that you are encoding into your subconscious, weeding out and replacing the dysfunctional core belief with the new one. And the reason you repeat affirmations over and over again is because the unconscious is the creature of repetition. So if we want to undo that indoctrination, the new program has to be said almost as much as the old program. So when we talk about unconscious reprogramming through affirmation, I'm talking about you are in the dark. I'm repeating that affirmation over and over and over all through the night until I fall asleep, because I know I'm competing with an established program I have heard in my head for thousands of times. So if I want to root that out, I have to come almost as strong as that.
If you could give just one affirmation that could speak to, that could affirm the core part of us, I wonder what that would be. To the audience, just a very brief, I am worthy statement.
Give you one of mine that I use, and I use different affirmations all the time. And so one affirmation that I use is, I and God are one and the same, just as Jesus said. Because I have to get my unconscious to accept the reality that God is with us here and right now, that we are a manifestation of supreme consciousness. In order for an affirmation to work, when you hear it, it makes you feel something. You're like, wow, when I say that, it really resonates with me. Whatever it is, it needs to be emotionally and spiritually impactful to the person saying it. But you have to repeat them every night, every morning. And I think the reason why a lot of people lose out on the power of the affirmation is we don't practice them enough. You're trying to reprogram your unconscious. That cannot be done in one night.
You're creating an environment where you're hearing those affirmations over and over and over again. Anytime you're doing an affirmation, repeating that and feeling it as if it is true, feeling it as if the reality that you have put down on the paper with the affirmation is already here.
To reach God consciousness, there can be no doubt. If you work on the spiritual, the universe will automatically provide you with the material sufficient for your need. European psychology, modern European psychology, does not admit the existence of spirit, of soul, of God. And when we look at this word psyche, let us be very clear. Coming from the Greek, psyche originally referred to spirit. It did not originally refer to the organic mind. Psyche was spirit. It was study of the soul. And in that regard, it wasn't too much different from spirituality. But the meaning of psyche down through the ages was transformed from its original intent, which was study of the soul, to the modern behavioral intent, study of the mind. So technically, to be a psychologist, you're someone who studies the soul. Europeans transformed that into someone who studies the mind. Black people have to radically transform the way that they see themselves, each other, their circumstances. Radical transformation. For example, a lot of Black people have the same values, biases, assumptions that white people have. They just want God to free them from the white man so they can reproduce the white man in a blackface. Black America hasn't decided that it doesn't want to be a bootleg copy of white America. In order for us to overcome white supremacy outside, we have to overcome white supremacy inside of us. Before there can be the external reparation, there has to be an internal reparation inside of us. And to your point, how do you have that psychological transformation? How can that be truly organic if there was no spiritual transformation?
How has Western psychology been made less effective by taking God, splitting God out from the study of the mind?
I would say it has reduced its effectiveness. Because when you look at behavioral psychology, they look at affecting change on a level of behavior. Cognitive behavioral psychology, which is what my PhD is in, PsyD, they look at the relationship between thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. The behaviorists and the cognitive behavioralists control the field of psychology. And so it's difficult to get beyond it, which is why I say why a lot of Black people don't really get a lot of help from traditional therapy, because it does not involve their relationship with God. It does not deal with the divine. And if you want to treat Black people effectively, you have to deal with our spiritual life, because that is the heart and soul of who we are. So if you deny the existence of spirit, how can you truly heal Black people?
There's no understanding of how consciousness fits into that model, which means that the psychologist cannot draw upon that knowledge of consciousness in order to properly heal or address someone's psychological concerns. My question then, what would a behaviorist say about somebody who's deathly afraid of dying, doesn't want to die, keeping in mind the behaviorist doesn't have an understanding of consciousness?
They would deal with the fear of death from the angle of anxiety, paranoia. So they're not going to deal with the meaning of death. Because for psychologists, it's often about how do you reconcile the issue right now? How do you manage? It's not so much about getting rid of. It's about managing the illness so you can still be a functional member of society.
Okay, so now if you say that sounds a lot like the medical complex, it's about being able to manage an issue as opposed to curing or solving it completely. And that's an issue because such a therapeutic practice cannot address the core fears. I'm wondering then if it is not time for a new model of psychology. One of the things I've been working on is this concept of transcendent psychology, where we put God back into the very system of creating meaning. My degree is in communication. Communication is the study of meaning. Right? If I can get somebody to understand something differently, I can change actions, behaviors, thought patterns, emotional patterns, feeling patterns. The idea here is, what if we were to place consciousness back into our models of meaning, just like the ancients had, such that we are able to develop new psycho-spiritual technologies that allow us to do more, produce more, that allow us to be more. And when I say be more, I mean be more human with other people. It's okay. But to be able to let go of this baggage with the understanding that when we let go of baggage in this lifetime, we are also forgiving and allowing our ancestors to let go of the baggage they may have had when they passed on. I'm talking about a new model of psychology.
That's powerful. When we look at slavery and colonization, your church, your masjid, your temple was never allowed to be a vessel for freedom in the first place. You were not sent to church to figure out how to run away from the slave master. You were not sent to church to figure out how to get the 13th Amendment passed. You were sent to church to pray to God that you could get the strength to continue being an obedient slave. So when you look at the culture of Black religion and how it evolved in America out of slavery, in the Caribbean out of slavery, and how it evolved in Africa out of colonization, it's no wonder why we don't address problems in the church, because problems were never allowed to be addressed on the plantation when you went to church.
Okay, so in other words, I'm hearing you say, were you to be a military general and were you to be doing a campaign in order to conquer another people, one of the things that you would want to do is to make sure you co-opt their spiritual cosmology such that you are able to take everything that is revolutionary about it out. And you would want to make God, obviously, in your own image, but more than that, you would want to limit how high someone can climb in consciousness. So anything that's above level 2, let's say, you might go ahead and just take that out. You know what I'm saying? We're going to go ahead and keep you at devotion, which is nothing wrong with that. Devotion can take you very high in consciousness, but the issue is when that devotion is devoted to a person or a political group or a status quo that is not in your best interest. That's not about love.
Absolutely. Make God disinterested. Make your conceptualization of the Creator disinterested in the everyday problems of Black people. alienate God from the troubles that Black people face. Doctrine holds such a big place in the world religions. The doctrine. Jesus died for our sins.
Yes.
Muhammad was the last prophet of God. In spirituality, doctrine does not dictate your practice. Your experience of the divine dictates your practice. In religion, they have all the answers. Spirituality, you got to find your own answers. Wars have been fought over religion. There's never been a single war over spirituality. It doesn't matter what you believe. If you never experienced God, what good was all that? You and I both know people who know everything about the Bible. They're scholars, but they have no God energy in them at all. You say this person is a master of the Bible, but when I feel them, I don't feel any divine energy. It's all intellectual. They've never internalized this into their spirit. They're academic with the religion. They're not spiritual with the religion. We got to get back to the spiritual side. You don't have to believe in God. You can know God. You can experience God. It's not a belief. A belief is something I'm holding to be true that has not yet been proven. No, you can experience God. I have experienced God. So I don't have to believe, is there a higher power? Is there a spirit out there? I don't have them questions. I have experienced God. And I think Black people have to get to the experience and stop limiting themselves to the belief. The beliefs are fine. Nothing's wrong with the belief. But the belief ain't God. You have to experience God. And the only way you do that is by going deeper and deeper into your spiritual practice.
And then you find that the belief comes with it, right?
The belief comes with it.
Now your belief is unshakable.
Spiritual boot camps is what we need for Black people. We need spiritual boot camps.
Okay, so let me get some notes out. So what are you saying here? What would that look like? What would a spiritual boot camp look like?
I gotta flesh it out.
Okay.
The thought just came to me.
Sure.
I gotta flesh it out, but it needs to be a place, number one, where people can go through some spiritual exercises, some meditation, some fasting, some forest walks together, activating oneness. But I think we need a lot of spiritual boot camps because I believe Black people are dealing with crisis levels of depression. I look at all the people I hear about who've been taking their own life, my brother. I don't think there's been a year that's went by yet. In 25 years, I've been doing this work. I don't think I've had a year where I haven't heard about a Black person taking their own life. Spiritual destitution. That's what that is. Because we're raising our kids to pursue materialism. So the young Black man or woman in America, they don't have a spiritual foundation.
I don't know if you've ever had an experience with like astral projecting. You know, I don't talk about it too much.
I've never successfully done it.
Oh yeah, okay. So in my meditations, I'll go on these journeys, right? And that's cool. After the first one is incredible. I went skydiving in real life, and the astral world is just the same thing minus the wind. You can see into these different dimensions. I mean, it gets wild, but you know that all of that entire experience is within yourself. The entire thing is always within you. And so, what can 50 cars do for me when there's galaxies to explore?
Absolutely.
These spiritual boot camps, these can be revolutionary. And if done right, they could be the thing that transforms not only our churches, our mosques, our synagogues, our temples, but our other institutions as well, and give us the spiritual fortitude to be able to stand toe-to-toe with whatever life may bring, and do so with a courage that and a peace that passeth all understanding. Hey, it's Dr. Shawn Smith, and if that message between me and Dr. Umar Johnson resonated with you, then be sure to watch this video. I know it'll serve you.